I sent out a blog. How many of you read my blog this week? Good, 3 of you. Excellent. Well, in that blog, Liza, did you read it? No, you did not. Don't you lie right there in that seat. So, okay. So, I wrote a blog called I'm Awake, and it was based on this trip that I took to Rochester, New York with my husband way back when we first got together. The irony is that this morning, Kevin woke me up at 2:30 just to say goodbye because he was flying to Rochester to see his mother for Christmas. So he and his flight was, I got God knows when, but first he said, "Do you want to drive me to the airport?" And I was like, "Really?" I said, your flight's at 4 a.m. No, I'm not driving you to the airport. That's why Uber was invented, for husbands and wives that are not driving their others to the airport. So let's look at this. 25, 30 years ago probably. We've been together 34 years. So about 30, maybe 32 years ago. So we're supposed to go, I'm going to meet his parents for the first time because, well, our history of how we got together and all, his parents needed some time to adjust to his heterosexual son bringing home his husband. So so this was my trip. And we were getting up at like 3, 4 in the morning. So Kevin kept coming. He was like bustling around our New York City apartment, all excited. He's taking me home to meet his parents. And he comes back in and he's like, "James," I'm like, I'm awake. And then he'd go back and do something. I go back to sleep. And it was like, "I'm awake." So I kept saying to him constantly, "No, Kevin, I'm awake." He goes, "If you are awake, get out of bed and get in the shower and put a bag together." Anyway, I spent the whole morning with that, I'm awake. Even when I was in the bathroom, it was like, "No, I'm awake. But you know what? I wasn't awake. And it made me think, which is why I wrote the blog, about how often are we walking around in life saying, I'm awake. No, you're not, Blanche. You are sound asleep, but your body's walking, right? So, and here's what happened on that day. We got to the airport, and for some reason, the plane decided to depart like 5 minutes early. So it had closed the gate, and we missed the plane. Now, it wasn't my fault because the plane left early, which I made sure the airline knew that it was their fault because I was there at the time the plane should have still been boarding. So anyway, they flew us into Albany instead of Rochester and then hired us a big town car to drive us from Albany to Rochester. And by the time we got to Rochester, his parents had another reason not to like me, which was that I made us late, which Kevin let them know instantly, that it was not his fault. So the title of my talk today is this: Am I awake yet? Am I awake yet? So this whole day for me, this whole service that we're sharing together is about, it's a come to Jesus moment to really ask ourselves, am I awake or am I not awake? Am I really awake or am I sleepwalking? Am I awake to my own thoughts, my own desires, my own heart? Am I really paying attention to what's happening in my life? You know, in classes we say, you want to know what you're thinking? Look at your life. That's what you're thinking. Whatever you are thinking shows up as your experience of life. So, you don't want to know what you're thinking? You want to know what you're thinking? Take a look. That's what you've been thinking. But then you got to back it up even further. You got to back it up and go, why do I think the things I think to create the life I'm living when I want something else? And that does take an awakening. That does take a willingness to really, really wake up and stay awake. So I want to read you this. I have no slides today. I decided all attention should be on me. But I did. I purposely chose. I was like, you know what? I'm not doing slides today. I'm mixing everything up. You know, I get that we've been doing the slides and all, but today you get me. So, yeah. But you know what else that means? You got to listen to me because I have a lot of things to read to you. So that means you have to listen to me, and I won't lose you as I keep talking and you're reading up there what it was. So everybody take a deep breath because this is from John Steinbeck, who wrote East of Eden. Y'all, how many of you have seen that movie? Beautiful, great James Dean movie, East of Eden. So this is what he wrote. A kind of light spread out from her. And he's talking about the main character in the movie, in the book. A kind of light spread out from her, and everything changed color. And the world opened out. And a day was good to awaken to. And there were no limits to anything. And the people of the world were good and handsome. And I was not afraid anymore. So this is the character speaking of love. Falling in love with someone, seeing someone and just going, the world has just shifted. How many of you have ever fallen in love? Diane's like, you better raise your hand, Steve. So I'm going to assume that everyone in the room has fallen in love at some point in their life. I'd like to also know that every one of you are still in love on some level. And do you remember that moment when it really was like the clouds parted and everything was just like, I remember. I absolutely remember. I can't say this is when I fell in love with Kevin, but I do know the moment I saw him. I was sitting on the floor of a really dingy apartment in St. Louis, Missouri, where they stuck the actors. I was sitting talking to the choreographer, and from behind me, in walked this guy, and she looked up and she was like, Kevin. And I turned, I swear to God, you could probably hear the choir singing and the clouds parting. But I looked up, and here is this guy in little white shorts, really short, with these gorgeous soccer legs, and this beautiful male physique. But with all of that, these blue eyes that said nothing but kindness. And he was just, I was like, and he says, does anybody want to play tennis? And I was like, I don't play tennis, but I can try. I didn't, though. And he left, and I just was like, oh, my God. That's like one of the most beautiful energies I've ever experienced. She goes, yeah, his wife thinks that, too. I was like, oh, okay. And moving on. Because Kevin was married at the time. But that moment, that absolute radiant moment, this is what John Steinbeck's talking about. And this is what he's talking about in terms of awakening. As he says here, and a day was good to awaken to. Those moments where your heart just flutters open, actually not because of anything you've done, just something has happened and you've gone like, oh my God, life is really good. Life really is good. You know those moments? When you're just sitting in it, you're not trying to make something happen. Or I love that, I forget whose quote I read, but something about, we're not in every program that's designed to make you a better person. You just know you're a better person. You don't need to go figure it out because it was figured out when it was given to you, when you began. You just keep forgetting. I don't know why I'm turning into a valley girl. You just keep forgetting. You just keep forgetting and forgetting and forgetting. And it's not about trying to learn more. It's about, ready? Remember who you are. It's about remembering, bless you, remembering more of who you are. Not trying to become more. So that's John Steinbeck, East of Eden. So he talks at the end of that quote about fear. He says, and I was not afraid anymore. One of the things I wanted to come in here today and ask you all is, what are you afraid of still? What shows up in your life that you're still afraid of? I will say, whenever, and many of you have been in classes with me for a long time, I used to say that my greatest fear was that anything would happen to any of my children, either of my children. Of course, the worst came to be, and I now know what that feels like. I know what that is to continue to grow through that. So as far as for fear for me, I don't have a lot of fear anymore. That was my biggest fear, and I have walked through that fear. So what do you fear? What are you afraid of? Because in terms of awakening, you cannot be awakened and fearsome at the same time, or fearful. They don't live in the same atmosphere. They don't live in the same quantum consciousness. Fear is a man-made emotion. something that we have concocted to live our lives from at times, unfortunately. So I want you to really pay attention this morning and just ask yourself this month, what am I afraid of? Because I want to be awakened. I want to be awakening every second to this amazing world I'm in. And fear has no place there. So I better get rid of those fears, whatever they are. Fear of getting older? Guess what? It's going to happen. You can fear it all you want. Old age is coming. I love Joyce had a shirt last night. What was that? What was that thing that someone gave her as a birthday present? It said, did you give it to her? What was the quote, Reverend Sharon? It's so weird to be the same age as old people. Yeah, I love that. And she put it on, it looked great, right? So, what are you afraid of? Maybe it's just time for us to let go of our fears. So, how many of you know the gentleman, Alan Watts? Yeah, I'm sure many of you know Alan Watts. Okay. Alan Watts was an Episcopal priest. Did you know that? A lot of people don't know that he was an Episcopal priest, and then he left the priesthood to become a Buddhist because he felt that that world of religion was not serving him or the people that he was supposed to be serving. So he left it behind him, and he went and studied Asian religious studies, and he studied Hinduism and Buddhism is really what worked for him. And I have a reading for you from him. And it says this. So take another deep breath. Jesus knew he was God. So wake up and find out eventually who you really are. In our culture, of course, they'll say you're crazy and you're blasphemous, and they'll either put you in jail or in a nut house, which is pretty much the same thing. However, if you wake up in India and tell your friends and relations, my goodness, I've just discovered that I'm God, they'll laugh at you and they'll say, oh, congratulations, at last you figured it out. That's where we are. And this was 50 years ago that this was written. That's where we are. So this whole idea of finding out that I am God, you know what it really requires? It really requires us understanding what God is. What is God? If God is everything that you were watching, if God is the entire universe, and it's the sea and the ocean and the trees and the dogs and the railroad tracks between Poland and Ukraine, it's all God. All of it. If it's all God, then that has to be who I am. And I am so tired of being thought of as blasphemous because I say I am God. What's even more ridiculous is to being thought of as blasphemous within the New Thought movement, who seem to have been stuck somewhere in 1920. A lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. We make these boxes and we create these religions and these organizations, and then we sit inside the box forgetting that the world's moving on, buddy. Your box is obsolete. Get rid of the box. Get rid of the walls. Step outside and see what's really happening. And we are right on the precipice. So many people are saying this. And when I go back and find Alan Watts saying it I think this was I don't even remember what year it was. But when I go back and look at all of these, even Meister Eckhart, who was kicked out of the Catholic Church because he was a blasphemer. Because he dared to say, between God and me, there is no between. And that's all it takes. Do you know that? All it's ever going to take any of us to live more profoundly amazing lives is that last one. Remember who you are. That's all it's going to take. You can take all of your problems, all of your issues. Anybody got issues in this room? You can take all of your problems, all of your issues, shove them aside, remember who you are, and they will disappear. Because they can't exist, Margaret. Oh, good, Q&A.
I just wanted to say that remember who you are, has saved me in so many emotionally stressful...
You even have a microphone there you could have said it to.
I just want to say that in my the heat of passion or discomfort and being in a place where I'm angry or grief-stricken or whatever, but mainly angry, to like really being like, what is going on? I don't want to feel this, but I can't get to love only, and I can't forgive everything, but I can remember, if I can remember who I am, a way is made.
Yep.
So I thank you for that. It
No,
has saved
thank
my
you.
life.
That makes sense. It saved my life so often. If I remember who I am, I can't behave like this. If I remember who I am, I can't treat you that way. If I remember who I am, I can't talk to myself in a degrading manner. This week is self-esteem week in boot camp. And everyone, we're all working at it. A week with no degrading thoughts to ourselves, no self-talk that is not at the highest level. So the last quote I have is from Pema Chodron. You all know Pema Chodron. Anybody not know her? She's an amazing Buddhist monk, passed just this year. She says this: we already have everything we need. There is no need for self-improvement. How's that feel? Bonnie Schneider, you have no need for self-improvement. You're like, okay, I'm done. No need for self-improvement. She says, all these trips that we lay on ourselves, the heavy-duty fearing that we're bad and hoping that we're good, the identities that we're so dearly clinging to, the rage, the jealousy, the anger, the addictions of all kinds, never touch our basic wealth. What a great sentence. All of that stuff never touches our basic wealth. They are like clouds that temporarily block the sun. But all the time, our warmth and brilliance are right here. This is who we really are. We are one blink of an eye away from being fully awake. You, Scott Anderson, are one blink of an eye away from being fully realized. Lisa, Doug, Corina, all of us, we are one blink of an eye. I just blinked. I guess it happened. I'd say, would it be that easy? But you know what? Yes, it could be that easy. If we actually gave over to it and said, all right, enough of this stuff. I know who I am, right? I know who I am. I'm done with all the other stuff. I love that expression, though. One blink of an eye. So this month, our theme is awakening. Awakening. What do you want to awaken to? You get to decide. I mean, this is what Ernest Holmes' greatest contribution to the world was. Taking Thomas Troward and making it applicable. Making us able to understand it. Because really, Ernest Holmes, this is not a new message, folks. Thomas Troward said it way before him in a very denser way. And even before him, you go back to Socrates, Plato, they've all been saying it all along the way. Jesus said it, it's done unto you as you believe. Boy, my brother, who's a minister in Jimmy Swaggart's church, he, which I can never remember the denomination, I always just say Jimmy Swaggart's church. He made me laugh when he said it the first time, but now I realize that this is one of the problems, I believe, with modern day Christianity. Whenever we talk about, and we had this big discussion, I'll say discussion one day, about God, about Jesus. And I said, well, what do you got? What? He said, it is done unto you as you believe. What do you think that means? And my brother's answer was, yeah, most of us wish he hadn't said that. That was his answer. And I love my brother, and he's doing good work for people that need his type of spirituality. But he did say that, and everyone's been saying that, and I'm saying that to myself. Ernest Holmes has said that. Mary Baker Eddy said that. Phineas Quimby said that. Emerson, Troward, all of them. Your mind. Who? Quantum physics is saying it now. Joe Dispenza is saying it now. And they're not saying anything new, folks. They're just packaging it differently. That's it. So what are we saying? Basically, we're saying we are one blink of an eye away from being fully awake. But you have to know it. Your mind has to be willing to do the work. Because everybody knows my motto, do the work, live the results. That's what we get to do. And the work isn't writing a paper, although you still have to write them if you're in my class. But the work's not writing a paper or doing a thesis or this or that or the other thing. The work is commitment. Commitment to knowing who you are. That's what I want us to awaken to this month. I want us to be committed, right, Dr. Andrea? Committed to being who we are. And that is up to you. So, how invested are you at finding that one blink of an eye? That's the question today. How invested are you? How committed are you to find that one blink of an eye that will change everything for you? All of this is great. Love only, forgive everything, and remember who you are. All of it's great. They're all stepping stones. They're all part of that ladder that you climb up to love only. You forgive everything. You remember who you are, and then all of a sudden your eye blinks and you're flying. And you're off the ladder. And you're off the charts, too. So, am I awake yet? I'm pretty awake. I'm pretty awake. I'm getting more awake. I'm getting a little less sluggish. And I am awake. Are you all awake? Yes. Right. So am I awake yet? Yes. Am I awakened? I have that other blink to find, too. And I'm looking for it. And I'm looking for it wherever I can look for it, right, Dr. Tiffany? And you can trust all of the ministers at this center. We are all looking for whatever tools and things we have to bring here on a Sunday morning or on a Saturday night or a Friday night or whenever we decide to do this. We are looking for whatever we can bring forth for us all as an experiential to figure this blink of an eye out. Because as we get this figured out, we actually make that quantum leap, everything really does shift and change. And that's not being, as my husband says, hyperbolic. He says, you're so hyperbolic sometimes. Everything's fabulous. But I feel that way. And it's not hyperbolic. There is that one little moment. And you know, Rumi says it best. The breeze at dawn, you all know this, has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. Because that's the thing. Yeah, you're all awake, but sometimes you go back to sleep, don't you? How many of you can honestly say sometimes you go back to sleep and you forget who you are? We all do. We go back to sleep occasionally. But you know what? The best thing to do is when you see someone having fall back to sleep, just slap them. They will wake up, I promise. But I mean it metaphorically. Do not physically slap them. Yeah, don't slap her. Right? It's true. We can help one another. People tell me all the time when they think I have fallen back asleep. Do you tell your loved ones? Jose, do you tell Scott when you think he's fallen back asleep? The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. This month, make an investment in you. Go searching for that one blink of an eye. I know you're going to find it. So am I. And we're going to find it together. Namaste. Thank you.